Hi, everybody. We're going to talk today. We're going to finish up yesterday's notes. We're going to start with the things that Hoover did that made him unpopular and kind of his approach to how to give aid during the Great Depression. So Hoover is going to get advice from his Treasury Secretary, a guy named Andrew Mellon, and they're going to create some programs to try to get the economy going again. But they're going to be very cautious and very traditional. So they're going to be the same types of things the government has always done, and they're not going to work in a scale this large. None of these programs included any direct aid or any help directly to the people or directly to the voters. So what help is being given? It's being given through businesses and through companies. So this is Andrew Mellon. Hoover and Mellon, the government would use policies of indirect aid. Okay, this means that the government help, government money, is going to be going to businesses, banks, and corporations, not to individual people. And the hope here was that these businesses would take this money and would say, oh, yay, money, let's go hire people. And they would hire people and they would use that money to pay the salaries. The problem is, if nobody's working to start with, nobody's spending money. So demand isn't going up. And if demand isn't going up, businesses have no reason to hire more workers and make more things. So it doesn't make sense. And if you are in the middle of a Great Depression and you have a business and you're afraid your business might go bankrupt and the government gives you $1 million, your first thought isn't going to be, I'm going to go hire new people, right? Your first thought's going to be, how can I use this money to keep my business open as long as possible? So the goal here was to have businesses hire more people, but businesses didn't do that. Now, this type of indirect aid strategy is known as trickle-down economics, and it has never in the history of ever worked well. The critics of trickle-down economics call this voodoo economics. It's like you have a voodoo doll and you put a pin in the voodoo doll, and the person the doll represents has a heart attack or whatever. So you act on one thing to affect something else. You're giving money to businesses, and that's supposed to translate into individual people having more money, and it just doesn't work that way very well. If you imagine society like a pyramid, okay, you have the people and the voters make up most of that pyramid, and corporations and banks make up the least amount of that pyramid, and the government help is going to go to them. The government help is going to go towards businesses and corporations, and the hope here was that they would create jobs and wages, and that money the government gave them would trickle down to the people in the form of salaries and their paychecks. Okay, some of the policies of Hoover and Mellon. They have the Hawley-Smoot Tariff of 1930. This is a type of protectionism. So we raise our tariffs to protect American businesses. We make foreign goods more expensive with a tariff or a tax, so American goods are cheaper without having to lower their prices. The Hawley-Smoot tariff replaces the Ford-Macomber tariff as the highest tariff in U.S. history. It is as much as 30% tax on some items. And this is going to intensify the trade war with Europe. So we raise our tariffs, they're going to raise their tariffs on us. And the people this hurts the most are farmers, because farmers make the most profit from selling, their wheat and their corn and their soybeans to other countries, because those things are cheap here because this is where they're grown. But if you sell them in countries that can't get them, they're more expensive. So this is some farmers can't afford to pay that tariff and still make a profit from their food that they're selling. They are going to pass some limited public works programs, and I'm going to skip ahead, but don't panic on me. Okay, what's in the yellow box is the definition of a public works program. Okay, a public works program is anything that is used for the benefit of the public. So city parks, sidewalks, roads, health departments, bridges, dams, all of these things are public works projects. Now, the government has two ways you can build a public works project. You can do it directly, which is the government says, we need to build this bridge, so we're going to go hire some people and have this bridge built. Or you can do it the way Hoover did it and do it indirectly. And indirectly is, instead of hiring the people yourselves, you hire a construction company to build the bridge. The problem with that is construction companies are out to make a profit. They're still a business. So they're not going to be paying workers as much as the federal government would. So, yes, things are being built and people are earning money, but they're not earning as much money as they could have if the government had just acted as the company itself. Now, the largest public works project that is completed under Hoover is the Boulder Dam. We call it the Hoover Dam today. It was begun in 1930. And I mean, you can go to the University of YouTube or Google any of the conspiracy theories behind this. But there were people who said that in all of this wet cement, there were dead bodies because people died and they just were covered up. They didn't have time to go fish out the bodies when people would fall, or that the mob came through in the middle of the night and that's how they disposed of all the people they killed, was that they threw them into the wet cement and then smoothed the cement over. But it is incredibly dangerous. I mean, if you look at this guy, he's a high scaler. So he is basically rappelling down the side of this. And look at that. He's not wearing a harness or anything. He's just in a swing. The one bit of interesting, like, trivia fact I know about this that you guys might be interested in, lots of people died in the construction of this. And the first person who died was the father of the last person who died. So that's a little interesting. And the last thing we're going to talk about today is the Reconstruction Finance Corporation. This is what makes people truly hate Hoover. In 1932, there were a number of large businesses that were about to go bankrupt, and the government didn't want them to go bankrupt, so the government bailed them out. The government gave $2 billion in emergency financing for banks, life insurance companies, railroads, and other large corporations. And a lot of people think this is hypocritical because the government would not give people money to help them feed their families. But when rich people's businesses are about to go bankrupt, the government gives these rich people's companies money to keep those businesses open. So all those poor little rich people, they're about to lose their business, not about to lose their house. They're just about to lose their business, and the government's going to bail them out. So this was criticized as the millionaire's dole. You should remember from yesterday that a dole is welfare. Okay, so this is welfare for rich people, right? You keep their businesses running so they can keep earning profits from their business. Now, that's a little harsh. I mean, the Reconstruction Finance Corporation did keep the Depression from getting worse. If all of those companies had gone bankrupt, all of their employees would have been fired and the Depression would have gotten worse and we might not have recovered from it. So the Reconstruction Finance Corporation, it didn't fix the Great Depression, but it did keep it from getting worse. But because normal people didn't feel any relief from that, they're going to think that it does nothing. Okay. And that's it.